working in one important thing.
Okay, sure.
Stephen A., as you sit up here, and Molly and Max, as you guys are professionals, I don't think that you owe anything to another person in terms of figuring out what you want to do with your life. And it's not anything personal. I'm not here to tirade anybody. I'm not here to go at any particular...
I only have one father, Kyrie Irving. I only have one father. I have one father, Kyrie Irving. This is my father, y'all. All right.
So W Pop, man, W Pops. And I'm glad we got to recreate that meme, bro, because that question was crazy. When somebody asked me...
For years, it was the greatest what if in modern NBA history. What if Kyrie Irving had never asked out of Cleveland? What if the greatest partnership of LeBron James's career hadn't exploded at the peak of its powers? We've had the rumors, the theories, the cryptic social media posts, but now Kyrie Irving himself has broken his long-held silence, and the words he chose didn't just revisit the past, they reframed it. They attacked the very foundation of a legacy. This isn't about a trade request anymore. This is about history, control, and the story we've all been told about LeBron James's triumphant return to Cleveland. Kyrie just rewrote the book. To understand the seismic impact of Kyrie Irving's words, we must first return to the mountaintop. June 19, 2016, Oracle Arena, Oakland. LeBron James, on his knees, weeping. Kyrie Irving, the architect of the series-clinching three-pointer over Stephen Curry, embracing him. The Cleveland Cavaliers had done the impossible, overcoming a 3-1 deficit to the 73-win Golden State Warriors to deliver the city's first championship in 52 years. In that moment, they were immortal, brothers, the perfect fusion of transcendent power and mystical skill. The narrative was perfect. The prodigal king returned, found his perfect young prince, and together they slayed a dynasty. But behind the confetti and the parade down Euclid Avenue, a crack was already forming. A crack not in their talent, but in their shared story. The public saw a partnership. Internally, according to numerous reports from that era, Kyrie began to see a hierarchy, one where he was perpetually cast as the brilliant sidekick in LeBron's heroic journey. Every media narrative, every commercial, every discussion about the Cavaliers' success framed it through the lens of LeBron's homecoming and leadership. Kyrie's iconic shot, his breathtaking fourth-quarter performances throughout those playoffs were often footnotes to LeBron's all-encompassing legend. He wasn't Robin, he was a co-Batman who was constantly being introduced as the guy in the cool car who helps Batman. This perception was fueled by the structure around the team. LeBron's influence was total, from personnel suggestions to practice schedules. His business partners held key roles. The franchise operated, as many do with a superstar of his magnitude, as an extension of his will to win. For a player of Kyrie's otherworldly self-belief and intellectual independence, this environment began to feel less like a championship incubator and more like a gilded cage. He wasn't just playing basketball, he was living inside LeBron James's universe, where the rules of gravity and credit were predefined. The 2017 finals loss to a supercharged Kevin Durant Warriors team only accelerated the fracture. The mission was no longer joyful, it was a grim, impossible arms race. And in that pressure cooker, Kyrie started to question his role not just on the team, but in the story of his own career. Did he want to spend his prime as the most beautiful chapter in someone else's biography? The answer, we now know, was a resounding, earth-shaking no. But the reason why...
Because I knew that the importance wasn't in my ego or anything that existed from the reasons on why I would come into work every single day and not give 100% and not give my teammates everything that I had. From that standpoint, that was the way I was raised. I was raised in being in a professional environment, being in a workplace, and making sure it's conducive for everybody. So having those relationships and developing those every single day, and then on top of that.
I set out a goal 2 years when I came back to bring a championship to this city. I gave everything that I had.
For years, Kyrie Irving addressed his Cleveland exit with practiced ambiguity. He spoke of a personal journey, of seeking happiness, and the desire to be the man. It was enough to fuel speculation, but allowed the foundational myth of the LeBron-Kyrie partnership to remain largely intact. A sad breakup, but one born of natural ambition. That ambiguity is now dead. In a recent, sprawling and philosophically raw podcast appearance, Kyrie decided to tell the full, unfiltered truth. He didn't just state his desire to lead, he dissected the psychological environment that made it impossible for him to stay. And in doing so, he issued a direct challenge to the legacy narrative LeBron James has carefully cultivated. It wasn't about being the man in the simplistic way people said, Kyrie explained, his tone more analytical than angry. It was about existing in an ecosystem where your humanity is secondary to the mission, and the mission is dictated by one perspective. There's a difference between being led and being managed. He then delivered the line that sent shockwaves through the NBA historical record. I didn't see myself growing in that environment, not as a player, but as a man. I saw myself becoming a character in the LeBron James story, and my chapter was written for me, the loyal, spectacular number 2. I had to rewrite my own book, and that meant leaving the library he built. This was more than a shot. It was a philosophical indictment. Kyrie framed LeBron's leadership not as inspirational, but as totalizing. He painted the Cavaliers not as a team, but as a narrative vehicle for one man's legacy, where other players were supporting actors with preordained roles. He challenged the very idea of LeBron as the ultimate teammate, suggesting instead that to be his teammate was to willingly submerge your own identity into his. But Kyrie didn't stop there. He addressed the infamous trade request, confirming the long-held rumor that he gave it before learning of a potential deal for Paul George, not after. The narrative was that I was upset they tried to trade me. No, I was upset that I was in a place where my desires as a human being were so irrelevant that a conversation about trading me could happen without any prior conversation with me. It confirmed everything I felt. I was an asset in an asset management system, not a partner. With these words, Kyrie Irving did what no critic, rival, or analyst ever could. He provided a credible insider's testimony that recontextualized LeBron's.
Bro, you guys got to stop these narratives, man. It's not that I didn't like playing with Bron, you guys. And, I don't want to go into detail about it. Some of y'all comments just be so asinine. Bro, like when I was in Cleveland and I was a young player, I had no idea Bron was going to come back. Yeah, I had no idea that Cleveland was going to welcome him back.
Kyrie Irving's testimony did not exist in a vacuum. It was a stone dropped into the still pond of NBA history, and the ripples immediately began to rewrite the past and fracture the present. The immediate casualty was the cherished communal memory of the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers. That team is no longer a unified symbol of triumph. It is now a case study in competing realities. For LeBron James's staunchest defenders, Kyrie's words were the ultimate betrayal, a revisionist, ungrateful act from a player who benefited immeasurably from LeBron's tutelage and the platform he provided. Their argument is one of results. You won a championship. You hit the biggest shot of your life because of the double teams he commanded. Your legacy is forever tied to his success. How dare you now reframe that as oppression? To them, Kyrie is the epitome of modern players' sensitivity, prioritizing personal feelings over the cold, hard reality of rings and parades. But for a growing segment of observers, players, and younger fans, Kyrie's perspective resonates as a profound and courageous truth-telling. It validates the intangible cost of playing alongside a force of nature like LeBron. It gives voice to the silent trade-off that superstars make, sacrifice autonomy for a chance at glory. When Kyrie speaks of being a character in someone else's story, it resonates with anyone who has ever felt their individuality stifled within a larger system, even a successful one. This faction doesn't see ingratitude, they see a man prioritizing his own psychological sovereignty, a concept that carries immense weight in today's athlete empowerment era. This schism has turned every highlight from that 2016 run into a Rorschach test. The clip of LeBron's iconic block on Andre Iguodala. One side sees a leader making a legendary play to save his team. The other now wonders about the defensive rotation that forced Iguodala there, and the player who might have been blamed had the block not happened. The image of them embracing after Game 7, is it a moment of genuine brotherhood or a captured instant before the fissures became canyons? Kyrie didn't just share his feelings, he weaponized ambiguity, forcing everyone to rewatch history through a lens of doubt. The legacy of that title is no longer a shared treasure, it's a contested artifact, with two of its creators now offering radically different descriptions of how it was made, and more importantly, what it cost.
The maturity level I am now and understanding who I am, and I look back on that time then, we definitely would have won more championships together because there would have been a better man-to-man understanding about what I'm
Jones got the better of KD on the last possession. What will happen here? It's Irving, deep triple. Oh, Kyrie Irving with perhaps the dagger. Shakes the head, claps the hands, knowing he just hit a huge shot.
The dust from Kyrie Irving's verbal detonation will never fully settle. A permanent, irreversible shift has occurred. The legacies of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving are no longer simply connected by a championship, they are now bound in an eternal philosophical debate, a modern NBA version of Socrates and Plato, locked in a dialogue about power, autonomy, and the price of glory. LeBron James's legacy will now forever carry this asterisk of introspection. The story of his triumphant return to Cleveland, the crowning achievement used to validate his entire career narrative, now has a competing first-person account. Historians and fans cannot discuss the 2016 championship without also discussing Kyrie's testimony. It injects a necessary, human complexity into what was often portrayed as a monolithic triumph. LeBron's mountain peak now has a visible, permanent fissure on one face, not weakening the mountain, but proving it was formed by immense, conflicting pressures. His legacy is no longer just a monument, it is a landscape with both breathtaking vistas and acknowledged fault lines. Kyrie Irving, in turn, has cemented his own utterly unique legacy. He is no longer just the enigmatic talent who left Cleveland and bounced through teams. He is the player who dared to prioritize existential sovereignty over guaranteed glory, and then had the courage to explain why in intellectual, damning terms. He transformed his career path from a series of puzzling decisions into a coherent, radical manifesto. For future stars who feel constrained within superstructures, Kyrie becomes a patron saint of the independent mind. His legacy is one of principle over plaque, of narrative ownership over narrative participation. He may end his career with fewer rings, but he has secured something he values more: authorship of his own story. Their intertwined saga becomes the defining parable of the modern NBA's central conflict, the clash between collective pursuit of historic achievement and the individual's pursuit of authentic self-expression within that pursuit. LeBron represents the ultimate success of the collective model, proving that subsuming individual needs to a singular, brilliant vision can produce immortal results. Kyrie represents the ultimate rebellion against it, arguing that no result is immortal if it erases the individual in the process. In the end, Kyrie Irving's words did not shake LeBron James's legacy in the way a missed shot or a lost finals might. They did something far more profound. They complicated it. They added a layer of moral and psychological inquiry that statistics and rings can never answer. We learned that legacy is not just about what you win, but also about how you win and who feels whole or hollow in the process of winning with you. The 2016 championship is not diminished. It is now humanized, revealed to be the product not of perfect harmony, but of a temporary, fragile alignment of two vastly different universes. LeBron didn't take away LeBron's crown. He simply held up a mirror to it, showing the world, and perhaps LeBron himself, the immense, often overwhelming weight it carries, and the shadow it can cast on those standing closest to the throne. The final question isn't who is right, it's this. In the pursuit of immortality, is it better to build a kingdom where everyone has a role, or to be the lone architect of your own smaller temple? The debate is now eternal. Subscribe as we continue to explore the true, complex cost of greatness.
Somebody said if you don't like playing with LeBron, you wouldn't like playing with Kobe. Bro, you guys got to stop these narratives, man. It's not that I didn't like playing with Bron, you guys. And, I don't want to go into detail about it. Some of y'all comments just be so asinine.
They don't know.
Bro, like when I was in Cleveland and I was a young player, I had no idea Bron was going to come back.
Facts.
Yeah, I had no idea that Cleveland.
LeBron James now faces the most elusive opponent of his career, a credible philosophical critique of his leadership's very essence. This is a battle he cannot win with a triple-double, a championship, or a charismatic press conference. Kyrie Irving did not attack his statistics or his clutch gene. He attacked the ecosystem LeBron naturally cultivates. How do you defend against an accusation of being too powerful, too centralizing, when your entire historic value is derived from that very power and centrality? LeBron's legacy apparatus has always been masterful at navigating traditional criticism. It counters not enough rings with longevity and statistical omnipresence. It counters played in weaker East with the iconic 2016 championship over a 73-win team. But Kyrie's testimony is an internal critique. It comes from within the championship photo itself. It uses the glory of the achievement to question the human cost of its machinery. This makes it bulletproof to LeBron's usual defenses. Any public response beyond a bland, "I wish him nothing but the best," would be disastrous. It would validate Kyrie's point about control by attempting to control the narrative about the narrative. Silence is his only dignified option, but it is a concession of sorts, an acknowledgement that this particular battlefield belongs to Kyrie. This predicament exposes the peril of LeBron's meticulously managed, long-game approach to his place in history. By consciously building a legacy that rivals Jordan's, he made himself and his methods a subject of eternal scrutiny. Every relationship, every team dynamic is now retroactively examined, not just for success, but for its contribution to the LeBron James legacy project. Kyrie has simply applied the most rigorous audit yet. He's saying the project's success required the assimilation of other brilliant minds into its framework. In the eyes of history, this won't diminish LeBron's basketball accomplishments, but it may permanently complicate the story of them. The biography will now require a chapter on the talented lieutenant who rejected the empire, not because he couldn't win within it, but because winning within it felt like a loss of self. LeBron's legacy becomes not just a tale of victory, but a case study in the immense gravitational pull of greatness and the collateral damage that pull can create. He wanted to be the definitive story of his era. Kyrie Irving has ensured that story will forever contain a dissenting, eloquent, and unforgettable footnote.
It's me every day. So me going against Bron, we played one-on-one one time, by the way. I'm not going to tell y'all who won or lost.
No, tell us, bro.
We had fun going back and forth. We had fun. I'm not going to talk about who got the better like y'all two, but we had fun back and forth. But I'll close it in like this. I'm a troll, B. Leave it for the speculation. But I definitely feel like if
Kyrie Irving's critique of his Cleveland experience transcends a personal grievance. It holds up a mirror to the modern NBA superstar ecosystem, and the reflection is uncomfortably revealing. In an era where player empowerment is the mantra, Kyrie's testimony exposes its most complex paradox. The most empowered player in any room can, by the sheer gravity of his influence, inadvertently disempower those around him. LeBron James is the archetype of 21st century player power. He controls his career, his brand, his narrative, and exerts immense influence on his team's direction. This is celebrated as a victory for athletes, but Kyrie's account asks a destabilizing question. When one player's empowerment becomes total, what space is left for the empowerment of his elite peers? Can there be multiple CEOs in one basketball operation? Kyrie's answer, through his actions and now his words, is a definitive no. He frames LeBron's environment not as empowering, but as a singular sovereignty where others are vassals, not partners. This reframes the entire super team dynamic. We often discuss the sacrifice of stats and salary, but Kyrie introduces the sacrifice of narrative agency. To join forces with LeBron, or perhaps with any transcendent, legacy-conscious alpha, means you must willingly consign your own story to be a subplot in his epic. For some, like Anthony Davis, that trade-off is acceptable. For Kyrie Irving, a fiercely independent thinker for whom basketball is deeply intertwined with personal identity and growth, it became a form of soul death. In this light, Kyrie isn't just a malcontent, he becomes the unlikely prophet of a new, more radical form of empowerment. His tumultuous post-Cleveland journey, the Boston struggles, the Brooklyn experiment, the Dallas resurgence, can be seen not as a series of failures, but as a messy, uncompromising quest for a situation where his voice and his vision are not just heard, but are architecturally fundamental. He failed often because the demand is so rare. By speaking out, he gives language to a silent tension felt by other alpha talents. He makes it permissible to ask, is winning under these conditions, where my intellectual and spiritual contribution is subsidiary, actually a win for me? In questioning LeBron's legacy, Kyrie has accidentally questioned the very model of superstar alliance that defines the era LeBron helped create. He suggests that true player power might not be about forming collectives around the sun, but about having the freedom to be your own galaxy, even if it's a smaller one.